Yeah, the thing is, I get passionate, I get inflamed about this because there's very very few people who are even remotely touching on the simplicity that I've found. You see, look, if there is a God and he's called Jehovah and he loves us all, then and he's genius because he created the cosmos, then why didn't he write a book? More concise over a much smaller period, because that book, the Old and New Testament collectively, were written apparently over 1,500 years or 1,400 years, full with a whole myriad of different authors and this, that, and the other. If there was a God that wanted us, his beautiful children, to know him, you would have thought he'd made it a whole lot more simple. You would have thought if there was a God, it'd be in the sky every day and I am your God, obey me. I love you. Oh, by the way, Ziggy, don't get picking your nose and wiping it on your mother's, chest of drawers. Oh, okay, God. Come on. It has to be a whole lot more simple. And you know what? It is a whole lot more simple. If you throw out all that crap, then knowing God, you know God with your heart. And once you've got rid of all the shit in your head, you know God with your heart, you know God with your intuition. And like I say in the book, what's the language of God? It's your intuition. He speaks to you by intuition, cosmic consciousness. That's the cosmic vocabulary, intuition. And
Mhm.
so I just rest my case. I'd rest my case with the most intelligent of biblical scholars, and I'd beat them hands down on logic and reasoning. And what they would do, they'd squirm and worm around about this means this and that means that. I'd say in your infinite fucking wisdom it does,
Mhm.
but it doesn't to me. It just means a load of bollocks. And you're just trying to make it sound like it's wonderful and it's great.
I,
It's just ridiculous.
how would you go about telling? I mean, let's say not the person who's a little bit more privy, but let's say the average human being. How would you go about guiding them into saying, like, you said that the average human, I don't, you don't know how they can't tell that this is not, uh, that this is a matter doesn't exist. It's a spiritual realm. How would you go about telling them into having a metaphysical or a spiritual experience for the average human? How would you say that they can go about having a spiritual or a metaphysical experience?
Succinctly, take DMT or take
Without the
another.
drugs. Without the drugs.
Oh, without the drugs, then you have to have a traumatic experience. You have to have a near-death experience. You've got to have something which shakes your ego to the core, which absolutely cripples and puts the ego on the floor. Because the ego is a very powerful thing. It's the operating system for being a human being. Of course, it's got to be powerful. It doesn't want to let go, because if you let go of the ego, then you enter into the Maya. You realize that it's all illusion. And if there is a God, which I'm sure there is some sort of a creator which has created this individuated human egoic experience, because I know, and myriad other people, spiritual people, know that once you let the ego go, once for whatever reason you get outside of the ego, you can see it as clear as a bell. And so that's the thing. How, it's Plato's cave all over. You see, what I'm doing now is nothing new, of course. They were doing it thousands of years ago. And the likes of Plato and Nietzsche and Aristotle and all the rest of them, they were writing about it because they realized the same thing, that the vast majority of people are sheeple, they're completely asleep, they're automated, and that they will never wake up. And like Plato said, if he, and Carl Jung, he was, prolific at saying this. If you try to shake people out of their somnambulism, then they'll want to kill you. Because the last thing that they want to do is for you to break and shatter their illusion. Because the vast majority of people are not, they don't have the metal to be able to deal with that. And so that's why I think there's only very, very few of us that have these actual experiences. I was a man of the world. I was a member of the full contact British karate team, fighting bare knuckles, to represent my country, traveling around the world, with a knife in my pocket, truncheon in my bag, and all over the place on my own. You know, I would tackle anything, whenever it came. And so having done all
Get
that
inside.
sort of stuff, I guess the universe just considered, okay, he's ready now.
Get inside. Oh, Aaron, give me a second. Get inside. I saw what you did. Do it now. Go. Sorry, my son is being a fool.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so then, I was delivered this demolishing blow to the ego,
So you think there's
which
no other way to have a spiritual experience other than drugs or trauma or anything like that? Like I'm talking about,
no.
okay, do you consider the spiritual and metaphysical experiences the same? Or are they two different things?
Well, metaphysical is, I would think, the same thing because it's outside of the physical.
Mhm,
And so a spiritual is outside of the physical, and metaphysical is just different terminology.
mhm,
But what I know is when I've listened to a myriad of gurus speaking about their moment of enlightenment, and it doesn't matter who you speak to, they've only ever got one. And usually it's just some sort of a notion that comes about where the whole world goes still and they realize that they're an integral part of it and we're all one. Krishnamurti, for instance, he had one out of body experience in his whole life. And that's what he depended on. Jordan Peterson, are you familiar with him?
Yeah, I don't listen too much. I mean, I've heard a few things that he says, but I'm just not really
Yeah.
too interested
Okay.
in.
All I'm saying is because he's one of the most pronounced intellectuals at this moment in time, and everyone's took to him.
Mhm,
But he's done 7 grams of. I'm assuming it's cubensis because you couldn't take 7 grams of semilanceta.
mhm.
That would put you in a coma.
Yeah.
So he's took 3 because being an intellectual and being having spiritual experiences. He's had these sort of experiences whereby he was in contact with God. He's
Mhm,
done videos about it. All of a sudden, his consciousness dissipates, and then he's out there, and he's got this wonderful feeling of connection. It's like the Christos, rose in him
mhm.
momentarily. That's what these enlightenment experiences are. And so once he's had that, he wanted to know what the fuck that was. And so then he went on. You wouldn't think a college professor, other than, of course, Timothy Leary and Ram Dass, Richard Asphalt, Alpert, you wouldn't have thought anybody, or the other people in those institutions would be running, to have psychedelic experiences. But the point is, if you really are desirous about knowledge, you know that unless you are blessed by the universe with a near death experience, and you don't really want one of those, then you take psychedelics. And then it fills in so many gaps. And I'm seriously, I beseech you to take some DMT because you're in and out in 5 minutes.
Mhm.
You've got minimal anxiety. You just smoke it. You can do it in a vape if you're not used to smoking anything because it is very harsh. But once you've been into that world, you're gonna look differently at the cosmos.
Aaron,
You,
did
ju-
you
you just are.
did you watched my psychedelic videos? The ones. Okay.
Yes.
I know that you said that I went all over the place with it, which I do agree. But do you have any kind
Yeah.
of opinions on what you heard in those videos at all? Like
Well,
anything?
what you were saying about lots of the benefits of psychedelics, you were spot on with those, having not taken them.
Mhm,
And so you knew fundamentally, intellectually, what they give you,
mhm.
but it's the actual experience now that you would benefit from.
Right.
And so you've been out of body, so you know that it's a little bit like that, because what happens is when you go out of body, um, you pretty well dissociate from your ego, and at least. on lots of occasions when I was out of body, my ego was about at 10%. It was somewhere drifting, very dreamlike, in the corner somewhere when I was having this, astral experience where 90% of my consciousness was there. But when you take a high dose of psychedelics, 0% of your ego remains. You fucking take liftoff into the cosmos, into cosmic consciousness, and there you've just got a whole different ball game.
Yeah.
And it's very similar to people that have died and all this different sort of things.
Yeah.
And so, because I've now done that, 300 times, um, I've seen a lot. And now I look at this, and because I've married everything up, I've married my psychedelic experiences up with what they were saying in the Bible about
Mhm.
God in the clouds, and burning bushes and walking on water and all that. They were tripping, man. The tabernacles that which they carried around the desert for 40 years, and white smoke was coming out of them, and any unauthorized people going in them would be struck down by God himself in an instant. They were
Mhm.
doing psychedelics.
Mhm.
That's why they were the priests, the secret priests, the hierarchy, and this, that, and the other. And that information has been passed down to these people for millennia. They were doing it in the pyramids. They were doing it in fucking Timbuktu. They've done it all over the world. And that's why these people have got all these different stories about all these different entities and this, that, and the other. It just takes you into a whole different dimension. And uh, that's what, how many people have you heard which have said, "Oh, wouldn't it be great if you put acid in the drinking water?" And then the whole city was tripping. Well, as soon as you have one, psychedelic trip, then you've woken up. And it's like, the Beatles, all of a sudden they started tripping, 67, and all of a sudden, poof, their music changed in an instant. They weren't recognizable. The clothes they wore, the music, their lifestyles, they just completely changed.
Mhm.
But this is why people don't want to do it. This is why Neil deGrasse Tyson, he ain't going near no fucking psychedelic because he's terrified of the ramifications, because he just end up in his fucking garden staring at the fucking cosmos all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
He wouldn't want to be fucking reading books or doing math anymore. He just want to be out there absolutely amazed every single night. That's what it would do to people. And that's what it's done to me. You could say it's ruined me, because, lots of people say, "You're so clever and you got so much energy. You could do this and you could do that." I go, "I've fucking done it all. Whatever I wanted to do, I've done it all." And now, you know, if I'm ever going to do anything which is going to impress people, then I'm going to do it with my pen, for the very few that are going to be able to comprehend where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
I don't, I don't like the facet, because it's the facet of ego whereby I get larger than life, and then I'm belittling and talking down to people. But for 14 fucking years, I've been saying, "Come and talk. If you know something, come and talk. Come and tell me your experiences. You've done this, you've done that. Come and tell me. Let's talk about it. It'll be great." And then when nobody comes, you've got to start thinking, why? Why isn't anybody coming? And then people start saying, "I can't work out whether you're mad as a hatter or you're a genius." Well, that's because you evidently aren't a fucking genius or anywhere near. Because if you were a little bit near being a genius, you could see that all I'm saying isn't stupid, it isn't crazy. And you can find all I'm saying out there in different scriptures. People, I'm not the only person on the fucking planet that's, put this stuff together, but they're very, very far and few between.
You
And
don't
like
think?
you say,
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
sorry, one more thing. I think what happens is, Ziggy, is that by the time you've worn your throat out, you just give up, because
Mhm.
there's no point. And then what you do is you become like Muji or Sadhguru, and you get paid like 75 grand, for a couple of hours conference, and you wear your fucking robe, because under normal circumstances, these people just wear jeans and they wear Ray-Bans the same as everybody else, by the way. But whenever they go on stage, they put a turban on and a fucking, Indian guru suit,
Yeah.
because it pays. Because if you're sitting there, if For instance, if Sadhguru showed up in his training shoes and his jeans with his Ray-Bans on, like I've seen a photo of him, if he showed up, people would go, "The fuck's he? Where's Sadhguru?"
Yeah.
You know. But he has to play the game, and then he's quiet and and then says, in it, isn't it? What I listen to these people and I go, what the fuck do they say? They're not actually saying anything when you listen,
Mhm.
and it's like these people have all paid good money.
Yeah. You know,
I
I
wonder what
forgot what I
happened
was
there.
gonna say. The camera went out.
Yeah,
Yeah, in that you can hear me, right?
yeah, I can still hear you.
In those DMT videos I did you hear the part where I was talking about awake but dreaming? In actuality, still have it. This is why I asked you this. Like, still having a metaphysical experience in the physical, not just basically coming from a space of like just going through trauma or doing like extensive shadow work or anything like that. I'm basically saying like in the same way you putting life uh, into a metaphysical or spiritual experience. So, for example, I spoke about how you start creating your avatar, you start creating your world for the afterlife, let's say, or even just having a thought and writing that thought where uh, you're creating a reality and you're literally having almost an astral projection in the physical realm while you're awake. So awake but dreaming, like you're daydreaming, they say, or even so immersed, like I spoke about when I was gardening, and I'm so immersed into something I love doing that I lost perception of time. I lost, you know, I lost track of the fact that I even had to eat. I wasn't even hungry. I basically everything was just numb, and I was having a metaphysical experience in the physical. And since we know that your spirit is your space, you're technically having a spiritual experience in the physical realm. There's different layers of kind of like how to say. That's why I asked you, how would you tell a average person, you know, have a metaphysical or spiritual experience? I mean, are they going to just dive deep into just go do drugs, you know what I'm saying, or just have a traumatic experience, you know what I'm saying? Like when I look at the drug part, if you haven't strengthened your foundation or had a understanding of like, again, we spoke about the hermetic principles, just basically understanding that foundation, I feel like it would basically hurt them more than help them. You get what I'm saying? Uh, you know, it's like you know, when you don't have a strong foundation and you try to put a lot of weight on top of that, it's going to crumble and fall apart. That's why people lose their mind. That's why people tend to have, bad trips and whatnot. It's not necessarily just what's in them that is showing them that, demonic or dark side of themselves that they've hid in the closet, but it's just basically what they can and cannot handle at the same time from the level they're at. So I wouldn't recommend drugs at all to a person who's not there. When I said just an individual, I would always say do what you love. You get what I'm saying? Like, but to find what you love, you got to find that love frequency, that love within yourself, and know yourself to an extent of what you love to do. You get what I'm saying? Some people are doing and they think they love to do it only because of others doing it, or let's say in the family there was a generation of like carpenters, so that person thinks they have to be a carpenter, but yet they don't really love doing that. But I feel like the creativity and that spark, or in whatever you're doing, it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be a spiritual thing. You don't have to be into like retreat or healing centers or anything like that. You can find that spark in just simple, being an auto mechanic. If you just truly love that, you'll find that bliss, but it ties into other things. It bleeds into other things. That's why I said I ran a supplement company for a while. I lost the passion to it, but I felt like I loved it so much. I excelled at it. I did it so well. Yet when I kind of started to look into other areas that started to spark my interest, I didn't necessarily have to leave that industry. That industry kind of left me. I got laid off, believe it or not, regardless of me being the #1 market manager in the country. It's crazy. And I said, how did I go from this to this? And it's like, I'm a big believer in your life changes and molds to you. And but you gotta have no fear. Let's say, for example, if I'm in a state where I'm in a job, but I really hate it. There's always people who say, well, find something you love about it and work on your projects on the side. But what if you just did it where in an instant you said, no, I quit my job now because I know my job, my passions are gonna flourish. There has to be a real, this is where the whole faith and belief in self and, and basically just knowing that everything's going to be okay. Like people say, oh, I left it in the hands of God, or people follow synchronicities and whatnot, right? But
Yeah,
that,
you just go with whatever you feel to be the
yeah, it's
case.
like a
Now,
feel.
look, when you speak about psychedelics and
Mhm.
you speak about them, you wouldn't recommend it to this person, that person, and the other. I wouldn't recommend psychedelics to anybody
Mhm.
who I didn't consider was
Ready,
of
yeah, yeah.
uh, a stable enough mind to be able to deal with them. Um, Now, what you've conveyed to me first and foremost, I know that you're guided by spirit
Mhm.
because you was working in a high-powered thing and you was got a load of money, but you didn't like who you were. You weren't that great of a person, and so all things you don't know why you got laid off when you was top salesman. Spirit knew why. It
Yeah.
knew that you needed to go down from New York into a more sedentary, natural environment to get your fingers in the ground, to get cats and praying mantis and things like that, because that's your connection to cosmic
Yeah.
spirit. And so now you've got that. And then when you go into these spaces in your garden, you are having a spiritual experience. You are absolutely in the now, you're present, and you're having an ego death because you've forgotten about all this stuff. You're completely immersed in the moment. So that's your quality. Very few people can do that.
Right.
Gardening or concentrating on anything or having an involvement with anything for more than 10 minutes is almost impossible these days. And so that's why I say that, as and when it comes about, Spirit will deliver it to you when the time is right. Someone will just say that you trust that they've got some DMT, and you'll go, "Oh yeah, that's it. Thank you, universe." And then you'll have a little go of it, and then you'll see what happens from there on. But as far as I'm concerned, DMT is the most beautiful thing that I've ever encountered. It flushes the whole mind and body with youth. It takes 10 years off of me. It brings a zest and a youthfulness into my whole life, mind, and body. I look at the world in absolute awe. They have an afterglow for about an hour and a half. It's absolutely incredible. And when you take it open eyed out in nature, you just see the world like Avatar and you see faces and creatures in absolutely everything. You know that the whole world, cosmos, is just alive.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful. It's loving. It's benevolent, and there's nothing sinister. There's nothing remotely, evil or negative about DMT. Unless you're a psychotic person and you have like what's called a bad trip. But if you listen to any sensible psychonaut, they will tell you that there isn't no such thing as a bad trip.
Mhm.
You may have a good ego kicking, but you deserved it and you grow from it. At the end of the day, that's how it works.
You know how I look at the people who've lost their mind, or you just said something that kind of sparked something of interest in me when you said that it ruined you to some extent. So there's multiple versions of Aaron Berry. There's multiple versions of myself, right? I feel like let's say if you went completely bonkers and you completely lost your mind, you exist somewhere else, in my opinion, and you're not here anymore. But I'm observing you, or that potential of myself just not here anymore and somewhere else in actuality. It's kind of like when I said if you die, I mean the world is done. Like there is no world. Yet you're there, but you're existing here. Your body's here in, it's not fully online, of course, because you're outside of the matrix. That's why you appear to be bonkers. But the real you is just basically probably somewhere else. You get what I'm saying? Because I've seen there's certain people who just completely lost their mind, went psychotic and whatnot. And, that person really isn't psychotic. We perceive them to be psychotic, but that person is somewhere else. It's just that
Have
there's
you
many different versions of them.
have you listened to a video by Eben Alexander?
Mm-mm.
Eben Alexander was or is a neuroscientist. He was a neurosurgeon, and he caught a rare strain of meningitis, and all of his peers and colleagues and everybody said that he slipped into a coma, you see, and they said that, well, the chances are he'll die, he'll be a cabbage, and if one chance in a million he survives it, then he won't recognize any of his family and anything like that because he'll be a cabbage. He came back from being in a coma for about, I think it was about 11 days or something like that, and he made a complete recovery. He travels around the world now, doing conferences and everything. He's wrote books about it, and he says for every single second of that 11 days, he was aware he was in another dimension, and he was all different sorts of things pertaining to spirit and God and everything. This is coming from a man
There
who's
you go.
highly respected in that field, and this is what we need. The world needs more people like him, and
Yeah.
there's another one, Jill Balti Dandy. She had a seizure in her left hemisphere, which locked down all of her language and communication skills. But she went into the most beautiful place that she could ever imagine. And so when the ego is turned off, that's when we become God
Right.
again.
Right.
Because we're just having this dream. We're just being dreamt in the mind of God,
It's funny because in actuality, nothing bad could really happen to you in any kind of way. Let's say if something happens where you say, "Oh, I lost my mind," and now you're in a, like, others are going to perceive your human vessel here that way, but you're really not in that state. You're literally somewhere else. That's why I feel like there is a possibility that you ever hear parallel realities. Like, I look at this like this person, like, let's say I met this lady in Tennessee. She said that her dad has dementia and he's dying, but she says that she lives in a single wide, but in his mind, he's in a big house and he bought a brand new truck. And I can't, like, stop thinking about that because I'm like, well, he's in a paranormal reality. He's literally there, but his body's still here. Until it goes, he'll fully be in that reality, if anything. You get what I'm saying? But that's why
yeah.
I feel like if you're here and you're using your consciousness, let's say, how do we know where we, if that person never created the afterlife, right? Let's say whatever it may be, you could create an avatar, a different world. How would you know what to create afterwards if you can't fathom anything other than humanity? You get what I'm saying? So let's say somebody says, I want to evolve beyond humanity. Well, what do you know what beyond humanity is? You can't fathom. What are you creating
Well,
if you don't even know what you're going to create? You, like, the
yeah.
person that's there in dementia has a brand new truck, a big house, yet he's in a single wide with no vehicle. He's just an old fucking fart. You get what I'm saying? Yet he's
Yeah.
like Rico Suave in his reality.
So, I mean, he's got a dream, and because we are all God, then our dreams manifest. So, even before he's died, because the ego evidently is almost dead, and so therefore he's almost passed over, and his dream reality is making manifest.
Mhm.
Now, there's a guy who has wrote
Doesn't that
books
stop and
about.
make you think, like, what happens if that's really happening to us even now at this moment, where you swear
Oh, I
you're
mean,
a real boy, yet you're really not. You're somewhere having a dementia and you think you're here, like, having this experience, and it's actually real. You get what I'm trying to say? It's like so many
yeah,
fucking questions that you can ask.
I, I'm absolutely an
Like, you may
advocate.
be having a dementia, but you may think you're the smartest dude on the planet, and meanwhile, that could just be a fucking the result of what we're observing by somebody else. You
Yeah.
know?
Well, did you remember Steve Jobs on his deathbed? It was kind of like, oh wow, just before he died.
Mm-hmm. No,
Okay,
I,
so
I didn't. I didn't hear about that, but tell me about it.
yeah, so he was with his daughter apparently, and
Uh-huh.
just as he died, for seconds, I think he opened his eyes and he just went, "Oh wow!" And then he passed away. So he'd evidently seen something. Well, when you listen to all these near-death experiences, everything like that, there are loads of people that told you that whoever's dead, the spirit will come and sit next to them whilst they're passing over, and then people will say, "Oh, I can see Auntie Sarah and Uncle Jimmy, and all these things." And no, you can't. They've been dead for like 20 or 30 years. No, they're here with me now, stupid, and all this sort of stuff. But this thing, it's just an answer that we make our own reactions and of what he was doing. and how I was increasing my state of awareness, I'm absolutely convinced that we do create our reality. I did it with this with the threepenny pence piece, the coin. I did it with the pink football. I've done it with lots of other things. Whenever I've applied myself and I put my mind to it, I make it manifest. There's been times when I've been walking out in the regions of the woods and fields where I haven't been before, and then I've said to myself, "Fuck, I'm getting a bit weary now. I want to sit down somewhere and eat my sandwich." I walk around this corner of the field and just there's a random bench just sitting there. And you go, well, I couldn't see anything. All I could see is fields, fields, fields. And then, just as I say that, around the corner, then there's a bench. This happens so many times. And
Yeah.
I was, working this out with other friends, and they were doing the same thing. The world gets very, very phenomenological when you apply yourself to it. Now, the thing is about what I'm saying and how I'm conveying, and how I'm speaking. Out of all the people that listen to me, there's never been anyone except a Christian that's ever level delusional at me, or that, I don't know what I'm talking about, this, that, and the other, because they can't.
Mhm.
Because if anybody is remotely intelligent or well read or anything like that, then they will have a glimmer of what I'm speaking about, and they could check the things I'm speaking about,
Right.
against a billion other YouTube videos of near death and astral projection and, a relationship with God and, angels and everything like that. If you go on the internet and you put God in the sky, there'll be like thousands of pictures of clouds and stuff which look like God, and then loads of CGIs and this, that, and the other. Well, I seen it in real time on DMT. I know where this stuff comes from.
Yeah.
And I know where the stuff in the Bible comes from. It's the most logical, rational, and simplistic. It's Occam's razor. You just go back to the most fucking simple thing. And that's it. Is there really a God in the clouds? No. But there is these sort of things that you can see when you take drugs,
Yeah.
when you take something that shifts your consciousness. Yes. And then you say to yourself, well, is there a God? Well, I mean, we're God, because basically once you step outside of the ego, then we're anything. We're light being, we're pure consciousness, we're all different sorts of things. And when you look at what the human beings get up to on this planet, and then you people like Jim Carrey, his story. He wrote himself a check for $100,000. He carried it around in his wallet, and he still got it today. He wrote it $100,000, and that's the first check he got paid when he made Dumb and Dumber.
Yeah.
And so he created his own reality. But for about 15 years prior, he was like, doing, little joints, pubs, and this, that, and the other. Because he was a novice and he was young, he's always last to go on. So he was sleeping on nasty, grotty, like pub benches and this, that, and the other. And then he'd find the inspiration and the energy to put his bit out there. He created his own reality. All these people, they create their own reality. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
The only people that don't believe it are the people that haven't created anything.
Even well, they are creating. They're just not aware they're creating. That's the whole thing.
Well, they're creating their shit lives there by
Yeah.
all accounts. But the people that in California, millionaires, this, that, and the other. If you said to them, "How did you get your money?" and it's because they would say, "Well, I decided this, or I thought about this, and I implemented that, and I put all my energy into this." Yeah, well, they created it. The chances are they never won it on the lottery, and it wasn't given to them by the rich
No. No. No.
daddy.
No.
No. So
No, and they've got a. I'm gonna tell you right now, they got a different mindset than what your average person that I speak to here is. The whole thing is I've known them for 21 years. You get what I'm saying? Middle class, just like I am. It's just amazing to me how they had a paradigm shift in 2 years, and they just did it by investing their money in like stem cells. They opened up they don't know shit about fucking stem cells. It was just basically like a student. They grabbed the fucking doctor student, and they used his brain to basically run the laboratory, and then now they partnered, and that's basically how they blew up, and they hired other scientists after that. But it's just networking. It's one needed one thing from one person, the other one needed the money, and boom, it worked. You know what I'm saying? It
yeah,
worked
it's
in
the
their favor.
circumstances. you
Yeah,
look at Bill Gates' story, he pilfered, the vast majority of stuff that, Windows ideas and this, that, and the other. It was all, stolen. And and then the only reason that, he made it is because his parents were wealthy and they were in Congress and they were in business, and they knew the people on the board of IBM and all this sort of stuff. And they said, "Oh, I want to give you this. My son's come up with this. What do you think about that?" And then they had the money to fund it and all these circumstances,
yeah.
that's going on. And so,
I made a lot of videos on, like, like the whole money thing, and how it's a tool, but I've got a lot of different uh, perspectives, and what I spoke on when it comes down to the benefits of, like, how one people are like portals, bro. Like, they're opportunities that they may have, as something that you may not have. Like, for example, they had the money, but they didn't have the doctorate. But you know what I'm saying? You saw them working together, they were able to blow up, and then from there it was just like, now it's just networking into different areas. They've got a second laboratory they're even opening up, where they've even told me they want me to move down there to work with them. It's not something that I've
right.
had planned yet, but in actuality, I mean, it's something that I can always say, man. I mean, do you know how many people actually say, "Oh, I'm a millionaire," but then there's some people who don't have millions but can say, "Well, I have access to $1 million." I think it's like the
Yeah.
energy the same way. It's like nothing is yours. Like the spiritual currency, anything in the universe, it's basically, it's not about how much you own. Is, do you have access to it? Do you have the portals? Have you opened up the opportunities? Have you made the space for it? Have you made the network? Have you, and it's like, I see how it works literally as within, so without. But how I'm looking at the blueprint out here is exactly how it works within. But the only thing is, what's happening within, we don't see the insides of ourselves. We don't see it. We only see the outside. So we kind of like put all our energy toward the outside, but never really put the energy toward how the insides of our work. When in actuality, without the insides, you cannot even have the outside. It's kind of like, you can't have black. I mean, you can't have white without black, or you can't have one without the
Well,
other.
the inside is projected onto the outside. The
Yeah.
outside is an illusion, you
Right.
know. And so, just as an aside, about how I've left all my friends and family. I don't speak to any of my family except my daughter. Still
Mm.
very close to my daughter. But say like my sister, 2 years younger than myself, and then I've got an elder brother, 2 years older. We were close when we were young, but then the trajectory I took was a world traveling, massively experiential life, where they have lived in the same houses, done the same sort of vocation, and never barely ever been abroad except like, over, to the adjacent country for a 2 week holiday. And now I can't speak to them. And the reason why I can't speak to my elder brother is because he's vastly envious and intimidated, because he can't keep up. If he ever wants to engage in a conversation with me, I lose him in about 3 seconds. And he's one of these that likes to think he knows it all, but he can't remember things. He gets everything mixed up, and he'll read a few lines in the newspaper and then imagine the rest. Whereas me, I'm very methodical, and I'll read and read and read and read and read, and I'll know everything, and I'll just make him look stupid. So he doesn't want to have a relationship with me, and I don't want
Mm.
one with him. My sister, who's younger, she remembers me as this fun guy that she used to live with. We used to live together, we used to go partying together and all sort of thing. But since my world travel, I've come back now, and she wants me, expects me, demands that I am the same person that she grew up with. And she won't accept it. She doesn't get it that I'm not that person anymore. I say I'm not that person. That person died a long, long time ago. No, he's not. You just think you're this because you've read a few books. I want the old Aaron back. This, that, and the other. I say there's no such thing as the old Aaron. It's just a fantasy in your mind. Can't you see that?
Yeah.
But they can't. And so this is how people are in their, myopic mind. And then, I walk around the streets and I carry a staff and I'm always in the woods and this, that, and the other. And my sister and my brother live in the very close proximity. And sometimes people see me and they'll report back to them. Oh, I saw Aaron the other day. He's mad. He was singing to a car. And I'm like, Singing to a car. Well, you see, I'm often singing when I'm walking around or whistling
Mhm.
and this, that, and the other. And it's just people's interpretation. They see the beard and the hair. What's happened to Aaron? He's got this big staff. He's weirdo now. He takes mushrooms, and drugs, and that's it. And then they interpret when you're singing and looking at a car, maybe looking around, you're singing to a car. And then this is bandied around. And then my sister's texting my daughter, "Is Alan all right? He was seen singing to a car." They'll probably try and arrest him, if he's seen doing that. Oh, come on.
Yeah.
You know,
Aaron,
uh,
what do you think the best way for a person to overcome trauma, or let's say, if you know that there's people who've caused the trauma to you, what do you think the best way to overcome that it would be?
to overcome your own trauma, if someone's caused you trauma,
Right. Or either way, or either one of the two. What do you think the best way to overcome that in
let
either
it go.
perspective is? Let it go and
Let it go.
yeah, just forgiveness,
Let
right?
it go.
And I believe forgiveness.
Yep.
See, because the whole thing is that it, it even like when we hear Egyptian mythology, and when now we start to hear like once you die, your heart gets weighed against the scales of Ma'at to see if your heart's lighter than a feather. I think that the cause of all corruption and diseases here comes down to uh, lack of forgiveness and not letting go. It's kind of like even if your body doesn't take a shit, I mean, it's literally going to be the cause of some type of disease. But that heavy heart, that heavy feeling is what weighs you down and ages you quicker. It ages you quicker and it prevents you from moving forward because it's kind of like you're carrying an anchor with you. But the reason I ask this is I've had even certain scenarios. I got a situation where I have a very good relationship with all my family members. With my mom, I didn't have a good relationship growing up. She caused a lot of trauma to me, a lot. Um, Drank like, and she's still an alcoholic, but she changed a lot through the years, and I think through age, it's kind of changed her, and she's had no choice but to change. But
Yep.
I also noticed that upon forgiving her, she changed, and I don't know if that it maybe it was that in an alternate reality. You know what I'm saying? I once existed in that way, but I'm also I we spoke a lot about memory, and nothing really exists until it's just your present moment. But I really look at my relationship with my mom now, and it's like amazing. It's like I'm talking to a completely different person that I did not experience when I was younger. Yet those traumatic moments did have a long lasting effect on me into adulthood. Uh, and I started to realize that, especially doing a lot of shadow work, it even brought me to tears. It made me feel, I don't even know how to put the words into it, but I realized that a lot of it had to do with forgiving my mom and my dad. You know what I'm saying? And some of the things that I may have gone through, I may not even be aware of it, but I know it had a long lasting effect. Right now, I had something very interesting happen where I don't talk. My sister lives here in North Carolina with her husband, which is my brother-in-law, and they're the only family I have here in North Carolina. Everybody else is in New York or they're in Florida or even in Colombia and Puerto Rico. But I don't talk to my sister, and I haven't spoke to my sister in the last year and a half. Now,
Right.
it happened over something so fucking stupid. You get what I'm saying? So my son's birthday is in January, and my sister does a lot of creative stuff. She does a lot of that's what she does. She creates things to for events and parties and whatnot. And my girl was talking to my sister to plan an event for my son. And I was like, all right, cool. I had nothing to do with it though. They were planning it out, and then my girl kept telling me, yeah, your sister's trying to plan something big for my son and whatnot. And I was like, all right, cool. I mean, I thought it was a great idea. My brother-in-law is very similar to. He was one of the very few people that I can tell you I can have a conversation with for 3 hours about shit that you cannot talk to a regular person about. Me and him spoke about the metaphysical. We talk about philosophy, theology. I'm talking about, dude, we went in for like 4 hours like you and I, where it would go into hours of conversation and we fucking lost perception of time. And it was in
Hmm.
Spanish. You know what I'm saying? So I appreciated our relationship for that reason. But there were moments where throughout that whole planning of partying, he kept asking me, hey, what colors do you think would be good for the theme party? I'm like, dude, honestly, talk to my girl. I don't even know what the fuck you guys are doing. You know what I'm saying? Like, my girl keeps telling me that my sister's planning something, and then I don't even know what's happening. So I went and I asked my girl, "Hey, what are you guys exactly doing?" And she kept telling me she's trying to plan something big, but I don't know exactly what she's doing. But it makes it sound like she's planning something very big, and she might charge a lot of money. And I'm like, well, you got to ask her what she's going to charge, bro, because I had already bought my son. I already spent literally on gifts like almost $1,000 on my son in gifts. So I wasn't trying to spend that much money on a party, you know? And the gifts, I think my son would appreciate more than a one night thing that even they're going to enjoy. So anyway, I told
Yeah.
my girl, can you ask her what they're going to charge? Because my sister is expensive, but only because she charges for what she's worth. And I don't disagree with that. People should charge what they're worth. I don't have a problem with what they charge. But don't forget, it's depending if I want to take that package or not. Like I can't just say,
Yeah.
oh, yes, you're worth it, I'm going to pay you everything. What if I can't afford it at that time? So anyway, I told my girl, hey, ask her what she's charging. And my girl asked her, hey, what are you going to charge for this? And my sister kept saying, oh, just, I don't know yet. Let me just see whatever. And she kept putting it off, putting it off. And she gave us the price at the kind of toward the end after she was already done with like most of the decorating things that she was already creating. And then
Yeah.
it was like somewhere, I don't know what it was. I forgot. I think it was like $600 or $500 or something like that. And I'm like, babe, you're gonna charge. I mean, we're gonna pay $500 or $600 for a fucking party, right? I can't afford that right now, And I told her this because I had a budget at that time, and this is along the times where I was. Now I'm a lot better than I was a couple of years ago. I'll tell you that much. But I wasn't as willing to spend that much. You know what I'm saying? So I told her, I'm like, just
Yeah.
we can't do it right now. We can't spend that much money right now. Just tell her if we can make something a little more simple. So anyway, she responded to my girl and told her, I mean to my sister, and told her that we can't do that right now. But that we could do the party a little more simple and whatnot, but we can't afford that right now. I don't know what happened. She just completely closed the chapter on us, right? And
Just cut
what's
it.
what's funny was is that I actually started asking myself, well, what the fuck? Why? And my brother-in-law stopped talking to me too. My sister stopped talking to me. My brother-in-law stopped talking to me. And one point, when it was my sister's birthday, I typed in "Happy Birthday." And thank you. That was it. And I remember I called them one point. They never picked up, never returned my call. So I was like, all right, cool, whatever. I'm gonna leave it alone. But it's till this day I still ponder and think about this, right? And I say to myself, if my girl was planning that party with my sister, but I had no idea what the fuck was even going on, they stopped talking to my girl. Let's say my brother-in-law stopped talking to me, and it's just like it leads me to believe, like and I don't have any grudges against them. If they were to call me, I would talk to them as if nothing happened. Yet my mom called me and told me, oh, what happened between you and your sister? Why you guys don't talk anymore? And I said, well, I explained to her the situation, and I said, look, if I'm gonna sell somebody a package, I'm gonna give them my package deals before I do anything
Yeah.
of work. You know what
You
I'm saying?
can't have creeping up on you and then just bang the bill on you at the end.
Yeah, it just
You
kind
know
of
that.
took me by surprise. But they got offended and never decided to talk to us again. And I'm like, all right, cool. They got two kids. My son loves their kids because they're cousins. And it's just over something so stupid. Now, I don't know. I've always thought, I'm like, wait, what if I'm the bigger person and just decided to try to call again? But it's like, no, I don't even feel like doing that. It's like, if it's like that, in my opinion, it's like that for a reason. You get what I'm saying? I didn't do nothing to them. I'm not having the most important thing I don't have in me is guilt. Because I told my mom, I'm like, I didn't do anything to them. You know what I'm saying? I just didn't want to do the party. I didn't want to pay that amount because I couldn't afford it. So you're mad because
Yeah.
I can't pay for a party? I bought my son a fucking PlayStation. I bought him a fucking Nintendo Switch. I bought him a tablet, and it's like I can't afford that right now. What did I do wrong? You know what I'm saying? It was just weird. It's like to this day I still ponder. I'm like, what happened there, and what position am I in, and how can I look at it from being the bigger person or the smaller person or the ego and whatnot? It's like, but then I came to the conclusion I don't give a fuck. If you don't want to talk to me, then just don't talk to me. Whatever. That's the
Yeah.
conclusion I just came to.
Yeah, but it's just like you look at it and you go, well, it's so unreasonable. Why do I want to try and smooth things over, knowing that these people are very unreasonable because it's only going to be a matter of time when they're going to do it again? So I've had this policy all my life because my mother. She bailed out on us when I was 4. My elder brother was 6, and then 2 younger sisters. The youngest one 1. She decided that she didn't want to be a mother anymore, so she ended her life. So from that point forward, I had a choice of whether I was going to be bitter and a victim, or whether I was going to go, well, thanks, you did me a favor, and I was going to be strong. Because if that's sort of a person you were, not prepared to stand by your kids, well, I was going to get that all of my life then, wasn't I? Because you evidently weren't strong enough to see the job through. And so, what I've done all my life with everybody, my friends and lovers and everything, and all my YouTube channel, I start on the premise that we mean to go on. And from the very get go, I set out to challenge people,
Mhm.
to compromise them in any way I can. And that way, I know that we're at the earliest opportunity, I can separate the wheat from the chaff. And now, when I've got people viewing me, the vast majority have been viewing me for years. They've seen me with all of my antics and all my cage rattling and all my jousting and this, that, and the other. And the ones that can get through that and still think that I'm all right, and they could sit down and have a beer with me because
Mhm.
they know I am all right,